session, I got the input from Divya that he's having some questions. So I would like to know, take up the questions from the previous sessions that whatever we are having. So Divya, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
I have some doubt regarding that. We have already done with that particular assignment that we have given for that MVC architecture. But we are facing some issue regarding that how to get those CSS and JavaScript folders that has been defined in our project, because we are unable to get those references in our JSP file. So it would be good if you can show us some examples so that it will be easier for us to get it done. And after that, I have some doubt regarding that interceptor and events. We don't have any. If you have any working example that you have already shared my test one project like that, do you have any working example for that so that it will be easier for us to follow that? Else, can you please show us small examples so that we can work on that events and interceptors and cron jobs, whatever the next assignment is going, because we don't have any basic project for that, so it will be
okay. So for the event interceptor stuff, I would like to say that if you just during the commerce itself, I would be sharing some of the functionalities like you have to implement, or if you just want, you can implement it in your system. So I will just tell you about some of the functionalities, some of the business scenarios where you can implement the event systems itself. Otherwise, if you require some of the inputs from me, I can just share some of the wiki links with you guys. So that should be sufficient enough for you, I believe, to practice it out. For the service layer page, whatever I have done or I have just given to you guys, it's just because the service layer, it's means complete end-to-end stuff that was really easy for me to just create the whole thing for us. But the event interceptors, whatever is there, it's already in place in hybris. So what I would request you that if you, mostly in the event systems itself, interceptor anyway, we will not have that much, means we will not write that much of those things anyway. So in our case, whatever I was just telling, that you can quickly go to the, means like whenever we will be discussing about the commerce itself, there I will be giving you some of the business cases, business scenarios, examples itself. So in that way, you can just take up the event itself, and that would be good. Some business scenario is required.
So in that case, we are going to anyway execute that same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine. Then there is one doubt that is left behind, that JSS and all those things. How can we get it attached to that JSP page if it is an offline scenario? Because anyway, we are able to get the JSP page online link. Because anyway, we can do that. But that is, we have tried a lot of way, but we are failing on the same. So if you can show us one example in which JS file would be in the project file agent, it is referred to that JSP. So that will be great for us.
So even the typical scenarios of the JSPs itself, like let me just tell you whatever the JSPs that we will be having and the JS inclusion of the JSPs. That also we can see in the commerce scenario. That would be a valid scenario. Basically, whatever we are right now, maybe as end of today's session itself, we would be just jumping onto the commerce itself. So once we do the commerce, there is a lot of things that we can actually work on that. Okay. So the JSP example, the JSP, JS examples, the CSS, wherever all it comes and all those things, whatever has been there, we would be able to just relate it to that. Okay, so it would be typically a commerce scenario, Divya, that we can just take up, and then we can just go ahead with these discussions. But as of now, for the copy capital, whatever the basic JSPs like we have created just to display the stadiums and all, it's not the right place. Or I will not say that it's not the right place. It is like let me tell you. It would be pretty early and it would be pretty advanced for that kind of a desktop-based application to include with the JS and all those things. Just wait for some days.
Okay. Okay, fine. Actually, there is another issue as well, because while I'm trying to insert other jar files to that project. Let us take an example. I was trying with an external jar which is giving us the JSON file in response. So in that case, while I am trying to rebuild the project, it's throwing that this particular jar is not found, that class is not found, because but I have already built that part to that particular project. I don't know why it's coming. So is there any specific reason that it is coming? I don't know, but can you please show that how to insert the external jars and build the file as well? So these are some basic questions that we are facing the issue, but anyway we are able to complete the assignment for that.
Okay, so yeah, that's absolutely fine. So I will means these kind of things anyway. This kind of springs and all means the configuration issues and all. We can just take it up offline as well. So you can just drop me a mail, because as I means and we will just reply back on that. So it should not be a problem at all. Okay. So what? Yeah, no problem. So what I would like to have, or what I would be like to just discuss with you guys, like whenever you were just going for the service layer assignment, the program itself, did you face any problem, or did you just want to highlight some of the stuff for the other people, whoever has completed that? I would like to have the question with you guys.
Okay, so I didn't understand the question. Can you please explain it?
Yeah. So you have told that the service layer assignment, whatever I have given, you have completed that, isn't it?
Yes.
So I would like to hear from you, or like the other participants as well, that what all you faced, and if there is any points that you want to highlight, or how you design the solution for that. That would be my suggestions, that if you can just quickly tell us.
Okay, so do I start right now? Okay.
Yeah, you can tell me. Tell us, not a problem.
So that scenario is that that the project should be independent. It should not extend any other project, and it should have that employee. There will be an employee item, and in which the AS should be dynamic according to date of birth. So in according to that, we have created the type systems API employee, and we have added that to HMC as well. And we have implemented for the dynamic. We have implemented the corresponding class. I don't remember the class. Let me show you that.
So basically, for the dynamic attribute handler, you have written that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, and after that, we have added that to HMC as per the HMC configuration, and we have designed a login page for that, where we are fetching the user ID and password. For that, I have added another attribute password is that in employee item, so that we can store the password and get the password and validate the user for the same. So and we are validating the user for login. After login, he is getting his details, and in that page we have given him a link where he can click and go to another page. There we have given him and search button, search input field, and on click of button press, we are doing the Ajax call and getting the data from the backend and displaying that. And each time he is giving a new value, that new data is fetching from the backend, and it is displaying on the same page. That's what we have done as far right now.
Okay. So basically, whatever you have done is like, it's really good, and I would like to say that it's thanks for that effort all you have put for that. So, and if you require at any point of time, so you can just quickly do one thing. You can just zip it off the project, that whatever the employee project you have created, and you can just upload it to the cloud and just send me the link so that I can just have a look at the code base if you want.
Okay.
So yeah, okay, that's absolutely fine, guys. So whoever has not done that, basically, so you can just try out itself, so that it will be very much clear to all of us that what is actually happening in the system. Okay. Now, today we have some plans. We will be having some plans regarding the workflows itself and the validation framework. So workflow, we will be seeing some couple of areas in the HMC itself and all those things. And this workflow example, whatever we are having, or the workflow, let me tell you in this way, the workflow practical examples and all, whatever we are having, we are actually having them in the trails itself. So you can just quickly go through the workflow trails if you just want to go for the practical part of it. it will be very easier for us. But as of now, what are the workflow? What are the workflow is offering us in hybris? What are the typical use cases that we use? What are the out-of-the-box workflow that has been provided by hybris itself? Those are the stuff that we are just going to discuss here.
Deepak,
Yes.
I have another doubt as well, because during a navigation between the pages, what I found that the user is, if the user is, let us take an example, user is already logged in, and right now he is in search page. So while I'm refreshing the page, I'm because as for the scenario, the user should not get the search page directly, right? But while refreshing that page, the user is able to get the details on that particular page. So is there any way that we can handle that? Because we forcing the user that you should log into that particular page in such scenario. Because we should not give the user directly search page so that he can search the details. It should be authenticated, right? So is that a scenario that we can implement on this particular project? Can you please even hints on that so that we can?
Okay. So in your employee project, means in your the basic project, whatever we have created, that's what you are asking?
Yes.
We can do that. Basically, there would be some of the Spring MVC XML that you need to write, and Spring Security XML also you need to write, and there you have to just make the authentication based on the URL patterns and all. So
that scenario you are going to cover in any such.
Just wait for some time, because these are some of. If we do it here itself, then it would be the irrelevant at some point of time.
Okay.
If we just do it now. So in the commerce itself, I will show you that how we are just going to maintain and those will be likely some of the what I can say good business scenarios itself, like the active business scenarios. So we will just take up those calls over there itself, guys. Divya.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes, Jadip, go ahead.
I have a question regarding your sample project. I coded that into my system and I was trying to get it running. I got it running, but there was one line in login facade infl.java I had to comment out. Actually, there's a call login details response. Set age. Yeah.
Set age. Yeah.
Yeah.
The set age was attribute. Okay, I have whatever I have shared with you guys. It's not having the age, it seems. So okay, so the age is like a different one. Means I was just trying it out. It's an incomplete code, so that's why you had to just comment it out. Otherwise, everything should be fine.
Yeah.
That's why I told that I have forgot to just comment out the age.
Yeah, it was throwing error. No such method, something like.
Yeah. I have in the service layer page it was not there. So in the facade I was just setting it up, and service layer code I have deleted, but the facade line I have not deleted that, Jadip.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so the next part is like whatever we are just going to discuss today. So it will be typically the workflow itself and the validation framework. Mostly the validation framework will be again some of the third-party validation framework that hybris is using. So we will see that as well. So what I would require the input from your end is like if anyone else is having any questions, otherwise we will start today's topic. Yes, Khaja, go ahead.
Deepak, I am doing a small application. I am facing some issue in while importing integer values using in enums.
Mm-hmm.
So my server is getting up. So as it will get up, I will show you that actual the requirement what is it.
Okay. Yeah. Just let me know once you just need the presenter access so that I can give it to you, and we will just take that call over there. And then if anything is big over there that we need to just discuss on it and something like that, then you can just drop me a mail with the code snippet, and then we can take the call over there. So it should be fine. Yeah. No problem. Okay. So let's just start with the workflows right now. So whatever the workflows we are just going to discuss, so do you have any overview of the workflows, like what the workflows are or what we mean by the workflows? Okay, so basically the workflow is nothing but the way of working in hybris. Like we are just having some of the processes already defined in hybris, and what we are actually doing over there is like we are taking all of them in account, like all the processes in account, and we used to define it in such a way that if the process 1 is done, then it will go for the process 2, like that. And the set of processes, once it is executed, then we call the workflow is complete. So there is a technical term as well. There are some of the technical terms itself I will tell you. So when I say that the processes are getting completed after one by one, it's like, so basically that defines a workflow in hybris, and typically the workflow is distributed in hybris as an extension where we use it for the typically back office related user interaction. Means whenever we are just specifying a flow, or we are just specifying a flow from the front end, means the web front end itself, and if there is any manual intervention needed in between. So when I say that manual intervention needed in between, that's very simple. It's like whenever we require some of the input from let's say some of the scenarios, let's take some of the scenarios like the user is registering to the system and a mail is triggered to the admin. The system administrator, whoever is there, a mail has been triggered to that guy. And based on that user's interaction, like the acceptance or rejection to the newly registered user, the further process is actually been triggered. These kind of scenarios are typically defined by the workflow. So when I say this, means like the registration scenario is an automated process that is been triggered from the front end or the website. Okay. At the same time, whenever it's the system administrator comes into picture and the system administrator is doing the stuff for that, so it is basically the workflow that has been triggering based on the user interaction, and that's what is the back office related user interaction is all about. So you can see that there are workflows can represent the complex processes with multiple tasks and multiple users assigned to it. So workflow can be defined in so many ways itself, and you can see that, like creating a product in the catalog, then handling the customer complaints as well. So handling the customer complaints and handling the quote negotiation, the B2B quote negotiation, I will show it to you today. These are the two typical scenarios where the workflows are actually in place for likely the whole full workflow is in place, or it's a very good example of using workflow in the real-time system of hybris. Okay, and we will try to relate the stuff as well. Okay. So workflow, there are some key features itself, like there are some human-based workflows are there, some of the system-based workflows are there, but both should be in a mix and match mode. Means whatever the human-based workflow or system-based workflow we are having, we are having it together itself in the system. Then we can start a workflow via hybris cron job. So in some time we are just going to see that workflows are nothing but it is typically a cron job. Typically a special kind of a cron job that actually is getting executed into the system. Okay. Then we have we can allocate the user or the user group for the certain task. We can comment on certain task. We can add task relevant attachments as well. These are some of the stuff itself that workflow is having, or let me tell you in this way, the workflow is having all the features that a standard cron job actually has. Okay. Then we can get the real-time notification by email, via email, and tracking the workflow, cockpit and process engine integration. Everything can be done as part of the system. So it's basically, or it's typically a cron job with a much bigger work scope. We can just define the workflow like that itself. So this is the typically workflow data model that we are having. So the workflow, we are having something called the workflow template. Workflow template means the process itself, that how and which, what I can say, which way it will be done, or which sequence it will be done. That is the workflow template that we are having. Then we have the workflow itself. So we have the workflow, let's say that the defined actions, that where the sequence and all that is given. Then we have the job itself, and the job, we call it as the action, means the snippets of the workflow or the processes of the workflow itself that we are having. And we have a cron information as well. So cron information means like when the workflow need to be run to the system. Okay. Means like whenever it's a system-based or human-based workflow itself. So what happens in these cases, the workflow used to get triggered from the system. Okay. And it is generated out of a workflow template. Means the processes are defined, like what process will happen after which one. Like that it is there. And it might have some attached items as well. So when I say attached items, that means it will be having some of the attached stuff itself over there. So let us just put it in this way. We can add comments, we can add some of the features to the workflow itself during the runtime. That also we are just going to see. This is a typical workflow data model that we are having. And we have the template for real workflow. So in our HMC itself, system workflow administration, we would be able to see all of them together. We'll see that. These are the workflow templates that we are having. So there are some of the visible principles are there and all those things. What are the actions that it need to take, and all those are there as part of the workflow template. Then we have the workflow actions. So workflow actions are nothing but these are the concrete task that is going to be assigned when we trigger the workflow. Okay. So whenever we trigger the workflow, we will be having these itself over there. The principal should work on the task and finish the action by the choosing a decision. So I was just telling that a decision need to be chosen whenever we are just going to activate the workflow, right? So this is the one. This is what it is all about. Then it get activated through the incoming decisions itself. So whatever the previous processes result, based on that previous processes result condition, it used to get processed further. So that's where the conditional stuff that comes into picture, right? So this is what the workflow actions are all about. So as I told you that the processes, whatever we are just going to perform, those are nothing but those are the workflow actions that we are having. Okay. So far, any questions on the understanding, because we are just typically going through the various parts of the workflow on a theory basis. So any questions on the theory part of it so far, guys? Okay. So now we are having the workflow action templates. What are the workflow action templates are all about? So the workflow action templates are very simple, that how the workflows or how the action definitions are being taken. Means what are the processes that is being executed, or what are the processes that are there into the actions or into the workflow basically. This is the way this is defined. So that's what we call it as the workflow action template. Okay. And then there is a partial order, there is a relation that is, these are all predefined by hybris, and we are just simply using the workflow templates. And I will tell you the use cases as well. So there is a typical relation between the workflow action templates and the workflow decision templates itself. So we have the workflow decision templates as well. So what will be the possible decisions that we are going to make on the workflow, that is defined over there. And each of the workflow template is assigned to a principal, means what's need to be done, that is typically assigned to a workflow action template itself. So now we are just working with the workflow itself. So we are just going to see that how we can work with the workflow. Just before going into the work with workflow, let us just quickly see in the system that where the workflows are actually located. So we are at the HMC itself right now, and once we log into the HMC itself, we can see the system, and then we can see the workflow administration, as I told you. So in here, we are having three things. One is workflow template, one is the workflows, and another is the actions. So actions are basically that what need to be done. Workflows are like how it's need to be processed, and workflow template is how the workflow is going to be designed. That's the very basic idea of having it. So we will just open a workflow template first and see that whatever is there. So let us just quickly check that B2B quote scenario. So quote scenario is nothing but when a B2B customer is asking for a quote from the merchant itself, that is the quote scenario that we are having. Okay. So in the quote scenario, whatever we are having, we can see that what actually it happens, the actions are actually properly given over here. So it's just the workflow starts with the approval, and there is a instead, there is a start state, there is a instead itself, and these are actually over there like how and what are the sequences that the workflow will work. Okay. And we can just add up an activation script as well as part of our workflow. So whatever we need to do or whatever we need to execute, we can write the Java code over here. And clicking on create workflow, it will create a workflow out of it, means what's need to be done. Okay. Then in the workflow template itself, whatever we are having some of the restrictions itself. And if I just go ahead and create the job search restriction itself over there, what happens is like which all the jobs or which all the sub-processes need to be suppressed as part of this particular workflow execution itself, that also we can define. Okay. The code type, job, the restriction itself, and even here the restriction is nothing but a flexible search query. Based on based on some of the conditions itself, we can write the restrictions over here, that how the workflow will be managed or what all will be processed as part of it. And we can just check the jobs, what are the available jobs or type of cron jobs that we are having in the system. So we can add up the restrictions for that. And then we have some of the advanced features as well. So advanced features are some of the advanced cron job features itself in the advanced tab of the workflow. You can see that whether it has been enabled or disabled or not. And then we have the notifications, we have the log to the database or log to the file. Then likewise, likely the cron job, we are having the session attributes as well, means the user, currency, and the country that is also been mapped out over here along with the workflow. Okay, or the workflow template itself. Then we have some priority that means if there are some parallel threads that are going on with this one, then what will be the which will be the priority of this particular workflow over there. In that case, these are the stuff that is actually written as part of the workflow itself, as part of the workflow template itself, basically. Okay. So we have some of the additional attributes like the once executable attributes. These are some of the typical cron job features that we are having. And in the workflow itself, whenever we used to go to the workflow, you can see that what all the, based on the template, how many times or what all the stuff that is been triggered from the system. Okay. So when I said that has been triggered from the system, that is very simple. These are the entries of some of the cron job that is already been in place by the system. So let us just quickly open one and let us just see that what the workflows are. Means workflows, again I am telling you what is been performed already. So you can see that there is a generated B2B order approval workflow that has been triggered. And this is typical cron job. The ID is there, the owner is there, and then the actions means the processes which is being executed in a proper way. So all of them are actually given over here. Whoever the user itself that it has been assigned to, we can just have a look at it as well. you can see that in the task tab itself, you can see that all the cron job features are there. In the run as also, we are having the cron job features. The time schedule is not given as it is a user-based workflow. It's not a system-based workflow. So this is why we call it the system-based workflow, are typically the cron jobs itself with some of the advanced features. Okay. But the user-based workflows are whenever the user is whenever the user is actually triggering the workflow from the system, that is the user-based workflow itself altogether. So this is one of the other point that I just wanted to tell you, and then we can log it. So if like the cron job, if it is failing or something, the log used to be saved into the hybrid systems, right? For workflow also, it's the same behavior. So any questions, guys, so far? What are workflow? What is actually happening with the workflow? How to play around with the workflows itself? Okay. Then we have the actions itself. So in the actions, whatever we are having that the processes that needs to be done. So you can see that these are also some of the processes that is been that has been pending or something like that. So this is the area where we can see that what all the processes that is been performed and what all the task is been performed and the status of the task as well. So this is what the workflow actions are all about. So you can see that the incoming links, the decisions itself. So the workflow actions are based on the action templates are based on the workflow decision template. That's what we have seen, right? So basically, one action will be taken only the related corresponding decision is given or decision is taken up for that particular action, and that's what is actually mentioning over here. Okay. So we have the workflow attachments as well. So you can see that basically the workflow attachment, like whatever the attachment that is been attached by the various phases by the users itself, that we can just take in account and we can just quickly go ahead with that. So let us just have a quick look at the workflow scenario or a normal workflow scenario itself. And I think by that way, it would be better for us to understand the whole thing. Okay. So the typical workflow is like whatever we are having in the B2B system, we call it as the B2B court order scenario. Okay. So the court order, we are just going to see that. What is that? So let us just quickly go to the B2B side and then we will just discuss. Okay, so I have just commented them out. Let me just uncomment it. Let me check whether it's there in my 5.5 system or not. Anyway, we'll see it here itself. So we will be having a look at the workflow itself, how it actually works in the B2B scenario or the B2B court order scenario. Okay, so that's what we are just going to see now. So, guys, any questions so far till the server startup is going on? Any questions on the workflows itself? Because this is typically a theory itself, and I would like to say one thing, that workflow we use very less because the process is a bit complex for the workflows. Rather than using the workflow, if it is absolutely necessary to use a workflow, then only we use it. Otherwise, most of the cases we either use the Spring Event system or we are just defining the whole thing in a proper cron job way itself.
Yeah, hi Deepak.
Yeah, Khajat, go ahead.
Managing all the business and warehouses, the product stock, all will comes under workflow, right?
We can tell that.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
Okay, no problem. Divya, you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Just let's wait for the server startup to be done, and then we will see that what and how we can trigger the workloads itself. Just a second, guys. Give me a minute.
Deepak, Jaideep here?
Yes, Jaideep, go ahead.
Yeah. So, just a question now. Cron job is typically automated and without human intervention, right? But workflow can have some human interventions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So basically, like the workflows are some of the cron jobs or some of the some of the cron jobs which is having the human interventions in between. We can just define the workflows like that.
Okay.
Okay. So the modeling of workflow itself is like first of all we have to just define the actions, and then we have to put the actions into a workflow template, basically that how the actions are going to be performed. And that's the typical way of defining a workflow itself in the system or in hybris, basically. So you can see that we are just creating a workflow. We are having a workflow template. So my stuff is actually getting loaded. So that's why I just resumed this part. So there are some of the workflow template model we are having as part of the service layer, hybris service layer itself, which is basically taking care of the whole thing. Okay. And then we are having in the API level itself, I am just telling you, and in itself, we're having the workflow API as well. From HMC, we can just go ahead to this place and then we can just see it. Okay, so in HMC we can see that how the workflows are there, and we have already seen this part itself. So we are having the so we have the workflow service for creating, monitoring, and all those stuff for a particular workflow, basically. So we can use the API to run that. And in the B2B quote order scenario, if I'm not getting the name wrong, so it will be in the base commerce itself. You would be, or in the commerce service itself, you would be able to see that the B2B quote negotiation scenario, whatever I'm just going to show you regarding the workflows itself, then it will be pretty much clear for us. So we have the workflow processing service, we have the stating, terminating stuff itself. So we can do that as well. Okay. So workflow processing service is starting and terminating the workflows in between. Then the workflow service is like the creating, monitoring the task or the actions, how it will be performed one after another. So like that. Then we have the activation script as well. So whenever the workflow will be evaluated each time when an item is created, saved, or removed itself. So those are the stuff that also we can just simply design it, the workflows. And if I can just get it correctly, so in the trails example, the registration scenario is actually given, which the example I have taken at the very first itself. So that is already there. So that's one workflow example that you can work on. But most of the cases, as I tell you, is like in the project scenarios, we don't use or we don't we don't use the workflows much because this process is a bit complex. The implementation is a bit complex. So in those cases, we mostly use the Spring event systems. Okay. So the Spring event system actually used to take care of the whole process-wise stuff, whereas the workflow we use less. But we can design it in a Spring event system in a better way itself. In product cockpit also, we can just define the workflows itself, like how the workflows will be taken care and how the workflow for the current user is actually assigned. So that also we can see it from the product cockpit area as well. So there are several areas also we can just see the stuff. So HMC is one. Then we have the product cockpit is there, and that is the one as well. So these are some of the areas that where we can just go ahead and look into the workflows itself, like how the workflow is actually designed, how the workflow is for the current user, and all those things. So these are the automated steps that we can just take in the workflow. So if the automated step we are using, then there is no manual interaction is needed. Okay. So all we can do is like we are just hooking up the whole thing into the service layer business logic itself. And once we just hook up in the service layer business logic, what actually happens over there is like we used to put it up. We used to put the automated steps over there, and then in the implementations itself, how we can use the automate workflow template job. This is again a cron job defined by the system. We can take the we can implement the interface itself and write our own job. So this is the same typical scenario that we used to follow for any other processes. Like we will be using the hybris provided class, we will be just implementing that for our business logic, and then we will register it into a Spring bin, and then we will just add it up using the template registry, workflow template registry itself during the server startup. So everything means whenever we are just using this interface itself, it is just automatically loaded up to this one. So these are the typical ways that we use workflow, and most of the cases, again, I am telling you, in the normal scenario, we use it very less, very, very less. Okay. So can anyone just quickly answer the questions over here? So we are assigning a car to the newly created employee to the system. So what are the steps we need to do it? The 2 points are given, so I would like to know from you like how we can just design on a very high level perspective. I am not asking about the code level or something like that. So can you guys tell me that what will be the all possible stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, we have to create a cron job and we have to create a workflow and we have to attach that cron job in.
So what would be the typical? So if I ask you about the data modeling itself, so take that there is a customer model is there is a car model is there. Okay. Now tell me that if any one model is created, then how the other model is going to be triggered and something like that. Can you just tell me on a little bit more?
Once again, repeat.
Okay. So let's say that we are creating an employee, right? Over here. So we have a means employee model, okay? And we have a car model as well, okay?
Okay.
So on a high level itself, can you just tell me that how the system is going to handle the situation, like using these models itself? Like we will be creating a user and we will be assigning it to the user model or something like that. The thing I am asking basically. And then we will take the car model into account and do the stuff like that.
Like there is employee item type and car item type. Whenever an employee get created in a particular attribute, we will assign that car reference. And that car will be assigned to that employee.
So basically what happens?
Depends upon the requirement, we generate the impacts.
Why the impacts came up here?
So sorry, I mean to say in cron job, whenever a employee is added, then a particular car will be added to that employee.
Okay.
Assigned to employee, yeah.
So basically the employee, whenever there is an entry in the employee model itself, let's say that the employee model is existing, so what the admin is going to do is like whenever there is a new entry to it, so he can just manually or he can just make the process automate. Wherever there is entry getting created, there will be a mapping that happens with the car model. So those two are the different models itself, but it will be mapped to each other in a typical way that where an employee will be assigned to a car. Okay. And this is where the workflow can be designed. So let me just quickly check. There are some errors, it seems. Okay. In server startup, I got some error, I believe. Build successful, then where it got broken. There is something that is actually breaking for my system. Let me quickly revert back the changes, okay? And then I will take another system as an example and I will show it to you guys. I'll just put ant and then I will just switch back the workspace itself. Just wait for some time. So in here, let me get back here as well once. Okay, these are the reference that we are having for workflow. So we will be seeing that the B2B quote order scenario itself, and then yeah, okay. So CT/CLS, and then let me open my Hybris 5.5 workspace itself. So you can follow my command prompt, right? Yeah, okay, you cannot see it. Can you see the command prompt right now?
Yes,
No, previously it was not visible, I believe, right?
yes.
You could have told me that, man. No problem. So that's why I was just having some errors and all in the system. So that's why I was just doing it up. So not a problem. So you would have also seen that errors. That's it. That was my sole understanding behind it. So let's get it started. And then, so if you have any questions on like, still the server startup is done. On the interceptors, there were some questions, right, from Divya? Or you had it answered as well? So, just a second.
Deepak?
Yes, Khaja, tell me.
In the meanwhile, can you tell me how to add this integers in enum, integer values?
Yeah, sure. So I will just pass on the presenter access to you. You can just share your screen, and then we can just take the call. And by the time my server startup will also be done.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, the presenter access to you, Khaja.
Yeah, now my screen is visible, right?
So far, it hasn't come for me. Guys, can you see Khaja's screen? I cannot see it so far.
Okay.
Khaja, click on the share button over there that is coming in your WebEx, and you will be able to share the screen.
Videos. Just a minute.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Share.
Yeah, it's coming up now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay. So Deepak, here I have created some characters. I'm creating some characters, and I am assigning and also I'm creating some games. So I'm assigning those games to those characters, and also some bettings I'm assigning them. Now, as per the requirement, I want to create some layers, and I want to fetch this data to the UI part. And also I want to write some cron jobs as some birthday wishes to them. So, so coming to that this data modeling part so here I have written some height of the characters, like 5 foot 7 inches.
Yeah.
So whenever I am just removing this, it is like it is not taking as a like integer. Actually, in string also we can give some numbers, right?
Yeah.
So because it is in like a string format, so I'm not understanding how to give it as a integer like that. For example, I want to assign 5. Here I want to assign 5.7 inches like that. 5 feet 7 inches like that. So it is not taking this value. So I just mentioned here like a before that it is taking, but if I whenever I will try, I'm trying to keep it back, it is not taking.
So basically, what you are telling is like fit 5 is taking 5 feet is not taking up. That's what is the correct understanding?
Yes, yes.
Means like.
Yeah. So directly I want to give here 5 or else 5 feet FT.
Okay, just wait a second. I will just.
Yeah.
I will just share a link where you can just get the hooks for this.
Okay.
Okay, just a second. Just a second. But one small thing is like, let me show it to you. You can just refer to this link, Khaja. So I will just ping it to your stuff. So there are some, yeah. So there are some of the means what I can say limitations over here as well. So this is what I was just searching for it. So I have just given it to you. You can just quickly check on it. So basically, what actually is happening in the enums, we cannot define or we cannot define directly the integers itself. So we need to put it as a string, and then we will be just able to access it.
Okay.
That's the typical limitations that we are having for enums. So you can just check over here itself, like in this link, whatever I have given, you can just open it. So you got the link? In the WebEx itself, I have just given it to you. Check the chat itself, Khaja. Yeah. Scroll down and see the comment over there. You can scroll down once. Yeah. Just wait for this Rainer Rigborn is a comment. You can just go ahead through it. I think it should be clear for you. No.
This one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one minute. Kundan wants to.
Yeah, Kundan, go ahead.
I was just going through this link. So here, as you mentioned that, here it has been mentioned that we need to give it as a string. So in the example that Khaja showed, he tried it with a string like 5FT, and the second example that he took was as FT5. So anything starting with number won't be, as an integer, won't be taken. It will be throwing as error.
Yeah, that's the behavior that they have actually telling us over here itself. So the Java naming convention will be violated based on the enum. So enum type, whatever we are just going to be there. So you can check the last line of the first paragraph. If the code starts with a number, the generated Java code will violate the Java naming conventions. So that's the problem that they are actually facing.
Yeah, okay, Deepak. So directly we cannot mention that in a number before character, right? So the problem is naming convention. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. So anything else that you want to add up here?
And there is another some requirement is there. So I will ask some time. Means this server is taking some time to get up. So I will just ask you.
Okay. No problem. For me, there was some error with the server startup itself, so that's why my server is also getting some time to start itself. So once that is up and running, then I will just take back the control to you and share the workflow scenarios for the B2B quote orders.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So guys, anyone else is having any questions like this? That like the Khaja has just told us any questions?
Oh, error आया.
Just wait for a second. So the B2B quote order scenario is I'm just going to, okay, the Power Tool site is coming up for us finally. So what we are just going to do is, typical workflow scenario. Let me just quickly add up something. So basically the B2B quote order scenario is something like if the user is having an order or one cart with a particular threshold, means like a big threshold is there, likely 10,000 is the threshold, I believe. So if the threshold is there for likely 10,000, so the user actually can ask for a quote itself from the merchant, and then the merchant actually processes a quote based on the user interaction or the user credentials itself. That's what is the quote order scenario, and typically we are just going to see that. So you can see that. So I will just increase the values itself over here. So if I go for the checkout, it will ask me for the login basically here. Okay. So we'll log in, go for login, and then I will go for checkout itself. This is a typical workflow example that we are just seeing. Still, the workflow is not triggered itself. So I'm in the checkout confirmation page itself, and then I can just quickly go for it. So once we are having a particular order threshold, this button is been enabled by the system by default. Okay, these are some of the JavaScript validation that is already present in the system. Okay, so what will happen? I will request the code, and this is the time when the cron job or the whole process or the workflow will trigger by the system itself. So once I will request the code, I can add up some comments as well. Okay. So I want it as a 25% discount, like that I have just added, and then once I click on proceed, the workflow will be triggered. And this is how the workflow is triggered from the system itself. And now what happens? It goes and it creates a quote order itself. You can see the order number will be generated, right? The order number is likely 10,000. So if I search for this order number over here, I would be able to see it. So let me just quickly check. So the order is there, and if I just open this one itself, what happens? We are having the, if I just go to the order history, I can see that the order has been changed as a quote order. Okay, so it is a quote order right now, whatever we are having, and now what we are just going to do with it is like we are just going to see that what is the next process of it. So its quote order is now, and I will go to my account for this user, and in my quotes I would be able to see that with whom this quote is actually pending. So its account manager D is the one. Now this is the back office interaction of the workflow that actually comes up over here. So what we are just going to do is like in the back office itself, likely in the HMC itself, I am just going to log in with this particular user account manager D. Okay, and then we will see that what actually happens over there. So I will just close it off, and as like we are having the admin nimda, so ACCTMGRD is having like 1234 1234. So once I log in, I will go to the inbox of this guy, and I can see that there is approval is already pending. B2B quote approval is pending by this customer. So every time this mail notification and all that will go off to this particular user, so it is not a problem. So the user will be, the backend user is notified that there is a code that is pending for him. Okay, and once that code is pending, so what we will do is like we will just click on the approval and open that. So once we just open that, it's basically a workflow action that has been opened. It's basically a workflow set of workflow action itself that has basically opened. And this is the decision template area that wherever we are just modifying and making the decision. So I can go to the order, and I can see all the details over here. And for a B2B command, mark reverse is given that I want it as a 25% discount. So me as a B2B approver itself, or like B2B, what I can say, account manager itself, what I can do is like I will give 10. So what we can do is like we can quickly, I'm just giving a future date itself, or let me just quickly give it as the normal date here. So this is one part that I have just I will give 10%, and what I can give it, like I will just go to the global discount, go here and do it, and then what I am just on possible date. Okay, sorry. %10% is given, and if I just want to recalculate the table, so what will happen? It's been recalculated. The value currency will be recalculated as of now, and I can put a B2B comment here as well, and we can just set up a B2B quote expiration date as well. So I can just set it up a required date that when this B2B quote will expire. That also can be done. So I have given that, and I have just changed the order value itself, and I have saved it and closed it. Okay. Then there is a decision template, whether it will be approval one or it will be a rejection itself. So this is where the workflow decision actually comes into picture for the action template itself. Okay. So I will just accept the code and I will click on OK. And then once I save and close, coming back here in the my codes itself, I can see that it would be active. So it is approved basically. So if I can just open this, I would be able to see that what all has happened on this particular load itself, or on this particular code status. So we can see that how far the card total was, what is the new card total, each and every stuff that is there. Okay. And once I just accept the code, it actually will create an order right now with the same order number. The order status is changed to an order itself right now. From the quote order to it's an order entry. So this is a typical workflow scenario where the user actually use the front end to just give the input to the system, and at the same time, the system administrator from the back end, they used to come up, and once taking on the decision itself, whatever the decision taken, that it will be based on that itself. Like, or let me just put it in this way, that it will be based on whatever that has been taken, the decision, whether it's approval, whether it's a rejection, it will come to the user and just notify the user as well. So this is a typical workflow that is already been designed into the system as part of the B2B accelerator. So any questions, anything? Okay. So this was likely whatever I was supposed to show it to you, and there is another area that we are just going to cover today. There is a small area though, that is the validation framework. There is a JSR 303 validation that is provided, or JSR 303 Spring validation itself, we can tell it in this way. Okay. This is the validation framework we are just going to discuss right now. So we have some of the APIs, some of the stuff that we can just consider it in the validation scenario. So we'll see that. This was pretty much about the workflow with the one active example. And now we are just going to discuss about the validation framework. So any small idea that what a validation framework can be, or what a validation framework is basically? Do you have the idea? Divya, you had a question with the interceptors, right? So it's very close to the interceptor as well, like the validation itself or the validator itself. So I would like to know that what are the validation framework insights that you are having.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Validation, I hope there is some restriction behind that product. And we are unable to see your screen actually. Can you please check that one?
Is it okay? Is it visible now?
Yes.
There were some issues with the application itself, so likely for the last couple of seconds you have missed my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, no problem. So the validation framework here. So you are just telling that there are some of the restrictions and all that we are having to enable or to just validate the data itself, right? So anything else? Anyone? Khaja, you were telling something?
Deepak, validations means like validating the user credentials, like the user is authenticated or authorized. This some of the part will comes under this.
Okay. So something related to the authentication itself, whether it is a user, whether it is any data to the system, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So we got one thing that there is something called the restriction itself while just inputting the data or something like that. Then we got another insight that we are having the restrictions itself, restrictions we got it, and the another one what Khaja you have told is like the database validations itself. So we will see that now itself. So in hybris, whatever we are having, hybris is using the JSR 303 Spring Bin Validation Framework. The JSR 303 is already a market existing Spring Bin validation framework, which is basically taking care of the validation scenarios itself. And in context of hybris, as it is just using the Java and Spring in the underlying layer, the validation framework that we use over here is also the same one, that is the JSR 303 market available validation framework itself. So you're getting my point. So it's a market available validation framework already in place, which we are just using in hybris. So whatever the Java validation framework that we are having, we are using the same here. There is nothing new. So it offers an extensible, an easy extensible way to validate the data itself for the system. Okay. And it is likely the user-friendly, meaningful notifications allow the user to provide the enter the valid input. So if you can remember, whenever we have just created the stadium, we just deliberately missed the code itself, right? So whenever we have missed the code, so what happened over there is like it was giving that there is something called the mandatory attribute validator exceptions, and the model saving exception was thrown, right? So this was the typical validation framework that was in place. Then and whatever it was just displayed over there, the meaningful notifications itself, we can change it as well. I will show you how we can change it. Okay. And only the validated data, whatever is there as part of the system, that goes to the persistence layer. Otherwise, the data is blocked at the service layer, the validation layer level itself, or the service layer level itself. So, why validation framework is required? Because we required it for the service layer to just send the proper data to the hybris persistence, right? And as I told you that the JSR 303 is the one which validation framework, the Spring Bin validation framework we are using in context of hybris just to validate the data itself into the system. Okay. So we have some of the constraints that can be defined as part of the Java, or some of the constraints are there which can be defined as part of the XML files as well. And these are also, we are just going to see that. Okay. Even we can define our own constraint type as well. So if I just want to define my own constraint type, I can do it. And the hybris data validation is having three areas. One is the validation service, that is the validation service API itself, which is getting called every time an interceptor is actually checking the data before it goes to the further layers itself. That is one part. Then we have the second part itself, like the administration cockpit, which allow us to create the constraint in the runtime itself. So we have the administration cockpit or the admin cockpit, which is allowing us to do all these things over there. And then we are having, or we can have, the cockpit integration that provides a validation feedback to the user. So we can just add up the user interactions for the validations itself in the cockpit. So we can just see that how the validations are in place and all those things. So everywhere there is a validations typically over there, and the cockpit integration, you can see it here itself. So we have the admin cockpit, and I will open it in some time for you. So what happens whenever in the admin cockpit there is a means data validation occurs or data validation happens, it used to show us like this, and we have the validation service, and the validation engine is enabled for that. Hybris by default provide these two options, the validation service and the validation engine. Validation service anyway is the API that we are having, and the validation engine is whatever or wherever the constraint that are there into the hybrid systems. Okay, means that's it. And means the validation service is how we are going to use the validation, and validation engine is what we are going to use for the validations itself. Now we are just going to see that the validation service itself. So from this diagram itself, just don't go for the key features as of now. From this diagram itself, can anyone put some light on what the validation framework key features is all about from the diagram? Anyone? Just go ahead.
Deepak?
Yeah, go ahead, Divya.
As per this diagram, there is validation from user end as well as reload from the database end. So as far as my understanding, that the data we are getting from the front end, and while we storing the back end, the validation framework was that the correct data should be entered to the back end, as well as the data that is fetching from the back end, the authorized user should see the data instead of seeing each other's data. You understand that what I'm doing?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So as far as my understanding is this particular diagram is the JSR 3.0 validator is working that particular area. So
yeah, Khaja, go ahead.
As Divya said, like the mediator is JSR 303 validator, so it is playing a main role in this. So the data is coming from some user server, and the data and other data is like backend here, and it is like whenever the data is coming from a particular user, then it is using some flexible search query. It is retrieving the data from backend and doing and also it is performing some validation. So if the data is if the particular user ID is already registered in backend, then it will fetch the data. Otherwise, it will just avoid. I mean, like error something it will display.
Can we make this very simple? So the data validation, whatever is there, the validation service load the validation engine with the constraint. Okay.
Okay.
And whenever it's a model service.get or model service.save or whatever the method that is getting called for the model services itself, what happens? This key feature means this validation engine is getting called. Okay. We have the JSR 303 validator as part of the system, and we have the database itself, which is the reloading for whenever it's getting validated or any model service call is there. Okay. And the validation service, it uses the JSR 303 validation, and we for the database itself, we will reload the stuff for the checking. So whenever there is a model service.save calls, that is intercepted between the save operations whenever it's necessary. Means whenever I was just going to create a stadium without code, at the very moment itself, the validator itself, whatever the validation framework that was there, that stopped me doing that, right? It was not allowing me to go further onto it. And this is just because that the validation framework is in place and it's just going and validating the JSR 303 validation itself. Okay. Is that clear, guys? Guys, or do I need to tell it one more time? So we have the database abstract constraints or database constraints, so whatever is there. And then whenever we are just changing or deleting or doing something with the database constraint, it reloads the JSR 303 validation engine. Or the JSR 303 validated itself in hybris. And then we are using the validation service to do it. The architecture of the validation service is something like this. The validation is performed by the default validation service itself. We have a default validation service API that is basically taking care of the validation framework, the whole validation framework. And you can see that it's basically uses the validation engine and it's basically implementing the validation service. And the validation service is basically loading the validation group, the validation constraint definitions, and validation constraint instances itself. So all of these, the validation engine is well equipped to perform the validation itself. And the default validation service or validated service, whichever is there, it is just basically calls the client or whatever the validator interceptor, whatever is there, along with the model service methods. So what happens in this model service methods, whenever there is an interceptor that is in place, basically this is the interceptors are actually validating the code itself. Okay. So it's just use the JSR 303 validation in the backend and just going forward to it. It just allows the user to get the interaction to the type systems and all those things. This is the basic idea. This is the basic architecture of the validation engine. So any questions so far?
Deepak, Jaideep here.
Yeah, Jaideep, go ahead.
So where do we configure the validations, or is it like we have to write some classes for them, or it's from front end that we write the validations, or how do we do it?
Okay. So anyone is having the same question? So cause this was the question I was just expecting. So thanks, Jaideep, for the question. So can anyone just quickly answer? Cause where we can do it, we have to write a code. We have to do it a configurations or something. What is that we need to hear? Can any one of you tell me? Divya, Khaja, you have worked on hybris, right? So I would like to know that if you can say it.
In front end, Deepak?
In front end. Okay. Which front end?
In facade and after facade layer, we can implement this for validation.
So when you say front end, then where the facade is coming up?
No, I mean to say front end. Yeah, front end is like in JSPs.
So that comes under the JSP validations, right? Then why we need the JSR 303, the validation engine constant on all these things? We could have done it in the JSP level itself, right? Basically, let me tell you, it can be done from the front end. And answering to Jaideep's question, we will be working mostly the validation framework that we are using. We will be mostly working on the models, the data models itself. Okay, like we have the player model, we have the stadium models and all. So the validation framework works on those models itself based on how it has been defined. Let's say if I have just defined the code as a unique attribute to the database and I'm just going to pass some of the ambiguous keys itself. So what happens over there is like there is again a validation framework that actually comes up in between and just try to stop it or stop us while saving it back to the database. So basically, it's not the front end itself. It's basically at the API level. Whenever the model service is getting called, we can do it, but we can reload it, or we can create it, or we can do all the stuff from admin cockpit. I will show you the admin cockpit. So answering to Jadip's question, where we are just defining it and how we are doing it, the one single source of truth for the validation framework is the admin cockpit. Okay. So admin cockpit, anyway, we are just going to see that how the validation, what are the constraints are there, how the message is like, the error messages, whatever is coming, that can be changed, and all those things we will see in the validation framework itself as part of the admin cockpit. So Jadip, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. So validation engine, that there's a 303 constraints and all, whatever is there, you can just quickly see that. And if I just okay, so if I just try to write something like, even in the Pojo classes, you would be able to see that if I just define a model as an not null constraint is there, so that Java annotation will be used at the rate not null over here itself in the generated classes. Okay. So now we will be just quickly see the admin cockpit, what the admin cockpit is sharing with us, or what the admin cockpit is doing with us over here as part of the validation engine. So guys, whoever is just open with their systems, okay, so let us quickly go to that area where we can just see the whole thing. What is cockpit? Okay, I'm just missing the P itself. So admin nimda is the password that we are having for this one as well. There is a validation perspective over here. So in the validation perspective, we can see that the constraint sections are there. So if anyone is actually familiar with this concept, do let me know about it. Or otherwise, whoever is actually done with the server startup, you can also go to this area and just have a look at it. This is the typical validation front end, or the validation perspective that we are having of a running system in Hybris. So we will just see that, and basically what I would like to do is like, you can just quickly go through it if the system is up and running, and then I will just resume it in 1 minute itself. So I will be back in a minute. So the validation perspective, we are just going to see that how we are having it here. So let's say for the customers, if I just open the customer, so in the as part of the customer model item attribute, we are having something over here, the customer UID and the customer name. Okay. So if I'm just opening this one, okay. So if I'm just creating a customer and not giving the customer ID, it will show us as an error, right? Or likely for the stadium model itself also, we are having the same thing. So you can just see that the severity, you can just add up over here that what kind of a severity it would be. Then if you just want to customize the error message, that whatever the error message, it will be displayed to the user itself, you can just add up the error message as well. So these are some of the constraint that we are already having. So we have the not null constraint, we have some of the other constraint as well, like the conditions itself that we can have it. The standard JSR 306 Spring Bin validations itself. So or otherwise, if I just want to create a new item, I can only create that as well. So there are so many constraints that it can be created as part of the whole system, and you can just simply assign it to a data model itself over here. So the concept is like if you just want to create, or if you just want to create any constraint to the system, likely even this is having another exercise itself in our trails itself. So there is a, like, if I am not mistaken, there is a match bait or something like that is there as part of this one, the validation scenario. So you can just try that one as well. So it can try, or we can try that. We will be creating a constraint, and once we just create the constraint like this from here, as I have showed you, so then all we have to do is we have to reload the validation engine, and once we reload the validation engine, the new constraint will be taken care and everything will be properly in place. So if there is any, so the concept is like if there is any changes in the new data model that is needed, okay, so the new data model, whatever the constraint needed, we can come to the admin cockpit and we can just simply add up the constraint over here. Okay. So the product constraint, the product picture constraint, product not null constraint, whatever that is, so we can just add up any of them. If we are having the item, if we are having the data model for it, if we are just validating in a data model itself, we can add up the constraint as well. And there are several types of constraint. You can just quickly check it as well. Okay. So this is what the validation engine is all about, and this is what the area or where we can just see the validations itself into the real time. So just this is what the exact answer of Jaideep's question, that this is where we can just add up the validations. This is where we can delete the validations. This is where we can reload the validation engine as well. So there are some of the constraint groups as well. So you can see that there are some product coverage constraint group. There are some size constraints. So what will be the possible values that we are just going to have, or we're just going to create that also? We can just see it here. Okay. Yeah, Divya, tell me, what is the question you are having?
Deepak, the constants that we are showing here, so is it predefined or we can create that?
So there are the type of constraints itself, like what can be the conditions that we can check it. Those are predefined basically, because as part of the all standard Java bin validation that is there. Okay. So whatever we are just seeing, it's that means the base of it is given, and then we can enhance on that.
Okay, when and that go through that in model layer, or there is no such layer architecture for that? It can be done from.
It's done on the service layer level itself. Everything is happening on the service layer level itself, Divya.
Okay, so are we going to see that in that project as well? The custom type constraints and all those things.
The custom type constraint, if you just want to implement the custom type constraint, you can do it. So basically, like let me tell you that how the things are actually coming up. So if we are having the my test, right, or my I think my test, yeah, my test itself. So if you just want to reload the validation engine for that, it can be done. And that's why I told you that in the trials there is an example of match bet score or match goal score itself. So you can try your constraints over there itself. Not a problem at all.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. And one more thing is like if you just require the input that which link you need to access and all those, just let me know. I will just share. So this is what the validation engine and the administration cockpit is all about. So we have three perspectives. One is the B2B admin, one is the validation, another is the admin perspective. Okay.
Deepak?
Yeah.
I want to know, so where is the model binding is done against this constraints?
So model binding is done whenever you are just creating a constant. You have to just define the constant in respect to a model. Means the constant is going to validate a model itself, and whenever you are just going to create a constant, that it will be you have to define it. And if you are not defining it there for the item model itself, like the item itself, there are some default validation is there that will be in place. If you are not explicitly defining your model. So there are some standard validation already for the item type, okay? Like the unique identifier and those things. So for that, the constant you might not need to define itself as of now explicitly, but it will be taken care once the model is created as part of the model creation. Khaja.
So that will
Sorry? Khaja, your voice got broken in between and I can see you on mute. Can you just come again, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Deepak, this is Kundan.
Yeah, Kundan, tell me.
These constraints needs to be defined in this item.xml file.
No, constants, see again, what I'm telling you, constants are, we don't need to define the constants in items.xml. All the things, basically the constant, how this is been called, let's say for the stadium code, we have put it as unique is equals to true, right? So then the unique attribute validator is already in place as part of the JSR 303 Spring Bean validation. Because whenever there is a Java class is generated irrespective means and the data setters for code is generated, okay, then you will be able to see that there is an annotation already been there that it should be a unique identifier itself. Or if we just put it as mandatory is equals to true, then the not null constant will be already been mapped whenever the model classes are generated. This is the how the way actually it works.
So all these things are implicitly provided internally.
Yes. Likely, if you can remember, one thing is like we have used the essential tag in the HMC, right? The code was inside the essential tag during the HMC practices, and whenever we just try to avoid the code itself, it giving me errors that model saving exception itself, right? Yeah. How that is been done? That is been done with this validation engine itself. The mandatory attribute validator and these things itself, all of them are using the JSR 303, and these are some of the typical item validation that we are having, or item type validation we are having. So let's say what I am just telling, let's say for product model itself, okay, you have added some of the typical validations itself. Typical, when I say the typical validation means which is special for the product model, okay. But if you are not defining it in like that way also, what happens is like there are some default validation already in place which used to be there and which used to be taken care during the code generation itself. Is it clear or can I say it one more time?
Yeah, that's fine.
So you want it one more time?
No, it's fine for me.
Okay. Perfect. So any questions, Khaja, Kundan, Divya, anyone? There is an exercise itself that you can just try out. Okay. The exercise what you can try out is like the match bit score itself that you can try, and once you try that, you will be able to figure out that how the validation works itself, and that will be given on the match bit score something of the copy trail itself. Okay. So any more questions? Anything? We can see that there are some constant item types are given and all those things. So you can just quickly go through it and you can create one as well. So I'd like to list all constant itself. So cart total sum. So there is something related to the cart total sum itself. Let me check. Greater than or equals to 0. Okay. There are some of the BTG expression itself. These are the stuff we will just see it later on. But customer name and UID is there. Then page and discount product. So for products we have defined some of the not null constraint itself. So you can just simply use some of the is null constraint or something like that. So if you just want to create some of the null constraint itself, then we will be writing it the name, let's say null. Then in the attribute descriptor to validate, we have to just search for the the model.attribute. Basically, model.attribute means like so attribute type it will be there, and the qualifier we have to give. Okay. So what happens? Let's say for product model product.code or product.getUID, like that something will be the attribute descriptor, and then we can define the severity as well. So basically, whenever there is a validation or a constant scenario is needed, we used to consider this whole thing, and the admin cockpit itself is the one-point solution for the validation framework that we are having. So this is how and what we have already seen. Some of the buttons would be there and some of the buttons would not be there because after this release of this PDF, the version of hybris has changed. So UI look and feel might be some of a little bit different. But this is where we are just doing the same work that whatever we were just doing before.
Hi Deepak, this is Kundan.
Yeah, Kundan, tell me.
Suppose we are having one field, there are two fields, and suppose one field value is dependent on another. Can we have that kind of constant over here?
So basically what you are telling is like one field is dependent on the value of the other field, is it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we can have that. But we have to define it in the items XML itself like that. So basically the validation itself, we can just create with the existing constraint, means whatever the existing constraint we are having, they are, as I told you, that they are the JSR 303 Java constraints itself, right? Constraints. So all we can do is like we can model whenever we are just creating the data model. See, everything is happening on the data model end itself, right? So whatever we are just going to do or whatever we are just doing it on the data model itself, all we can do is like we can design it in such a way that all the constraint is already in place. So it's basically the whole thing happens respective to the bin creation or the Java file creation itself. And that we can just handle it in this way. While just creating or in the creation time itself, we can handle it.
Okay. So as such, yet I have not gone through this part on the GSR part. I am not familiar to that part. But just the question came like, if suppose there is a number field and I want to set the minimum and max value on the same. So that can be done over here? Yeah,
obviously. So that is the example that we are having in the trails, right?
Nothing. So I need to go through this GSR part. I'm assuming that all such constants are already available in this GSR.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, all the possible validation constraints are already available as part of the system itself. Okay.
And if suppose any particular constant is not available, then can we write that explicitly?
So what you are just telling is like you want to create the constraint by yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that can be done.
And that will be done in what form? Means on what layer? As it's part of Java coding.
It would be the part of the Java coding. Mostly, again, it will be a part of the service layer or facade, wherever we will be just taking care of that whole system like that itself. So it would be the part of the facade layer.
Okay.
That we will be writing our constraint, and basically it's some of the validator class we need to write. Let's say for email validation is not there, so we need to provide the regular expression and just validate the user input with that validation itself. So like that we can do it. Obviously there is a way to do that. If anything is not there, we can code it in Java and put it over there. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Deepak.
Okay. Even now there is a small part that has been left out, that is the cockpit integration. So whenever we are just going for the cockpit integration as well, that time also the data validation framework is in place. So what happens whenever we are just going for the cockpit integration and we are just going to create a product without the code or something like that, means which is a mandatory attribute, it never saves it. So in the editor area of the cockpit, by default, the validations are already in place. So whenever every time means the concept is very simple. Whenever there is a model service.save is getting called, every time the validation is coming. So whenever we are just going for a database operation itself, each and every time the stuff is coming, like the data validation is actually coming and getting integrated to the system. Okay, so this is typically like the cockpit integration that we have as part of the validation framework. So any questions or anything that we are having, cause we don't have much things left. So what we can just do it over here is like we can start our commerce discussion itself at this point of time. Because most of the cases, whatever has been there or what was there that we require to start with the hybrid journey, we have done as part of the core. Okay. So what I would like to have your suggestions, that if you have anything in your mind or something like that, we can just quickly go ahead through it and then start commerce. Or otherwise we will start the commerce and see the applications of whatever we have learned in the core. So what is your call on that, guys? These are the typical theory parts that already I have planned for today. So I would like to have the input from your end, that what all you want. Should we start commerce or should we do something like that? So Jaideep or anyone, whoever just want to pitch in, it would be good.
Deepak, I think this is Jaideep here. We can go ahead if everybody is okay. Otherwise, I mean, we can take questions. You can take questions, right?
And that's what I was also just asking for the other people, that if you guys are okay, then what we will do is like we will just quickly start the overview on the commerce itself, or otherwise like we will take the questions. We are not in any hurry or something. Okay. So I'm not getting any questions so far. So what we will do it like whoever is, so we'll just have a quick conversation on likely 15-20 minutes conversation on these things, like the commerce itself. Okay. We'll just have the introduction. We will have the ideas that whatever we are having, and we have gone through the codes. It's gone through the demo itself. There I have told something about this commerce module. Those are the stuff we are just going to discuss now, and it will be more of a QA from my end. Okay. So, guys, I would like to know from some quick stuff from you guys is like what will be like the expectation from commerce. The first of all, I would like to know these things. What would be the expectation of yours from commerce? Because we have a long way to cover, and in that long way, whatever we are just going to cover is the applications of whatever we have learned so far in the core. Khaja, you want to tell something? I can see you on unmute.
Yeah. So you're asking about commerce, means asking to tell something about commerce?
So what I am asking the first question, that what is the expectation that you will be having in the commerce? Would you like to go for a B2B side implementation or in the project process, or it will be the typical B2C, whatever is there in the wiki? B2B is not there in the wiki, B2C is there in the wiki.
So go with B2B actually.
So if everyone is okay with that, I don't have a problem, because even I was also thinking to go with the B2B sectors, because the B2B foundation code based creation and all those things, the project scenario setup is not there in wiki. Okay. So
better to ask all people. So
yeah, sure. Obviously, I will just. Jaideep, you want to tell something?
I agree with that. Like if B2B is not covered in Trails, then we would rather have B2B, because then that would be the best thing to go for, right?
Yeah, so that's what is my plan as well. So it's like, as we don't have the B2B in our wiki itself, we will go for the B2B, and the B2C is already there in wiki, so you can just quickly go with the B2C itself, and there are some small differences are there. I will just cover them up. So as part of the foundation code base, I would like to go with the B2B with you guys, so that it will be the power tools all over, and we will see that anyway. So first is that one itself. Okay. So I would like to know from the guys who has worked on hybris so far, what is the main difference between a B2B system and a B2C system itself? Don't say that it's a business to business and business to customer. I don't want that. What is the main difference you have found in the B2B and the B2C scenarios, the feature level?
Yeah, hi Deepak. Kundan want to speak something.
Yeah, Kundan, go ahead.
Yeah, Deepak, this is Kundan. So I'm not from the hybris perspective, but as I have worked on the B2B and B2C scenarios, so what I recall from the SAP e-commerce perspective, like first of all, the difference between the B2B and B2C was that look and feel of the B2C site was very attractive, whereas compared to B2B. And the B2C B2B site has a early log-on feature where the customer has to log on first. The user ID and password are mandatory. A user should be registered. Whereas in the B2C, anyone can register. Whereas in B2B, only authorized in the sense the business should approve the user. And in the B2B, you have the code facility, whereas in B2C, you don't have that.
Okay.
And in B2B, you have the customer specific pricing, whereas in the B2C, you won't have that.
Okay. So let us just quickly tell it in such a way that the B2B and B2C differ in two ways. One is the user management. That is what you have told, the early login features and all those things, the registered users kind of a scenarios. And the second one is very simple, like it differs at the checkout scenario. Because whenever you are just landing up to a website itself, like landing up to a normal website, any of the e-commerce website is the same thing. You just go to the site. If you can access the site, browse through the categories, add a product to the cart, then go for checkout. That's the very simple flow, very basic flow of any e-commerce site. So for a B2B and B2C site, it differs at two levels. One is the user management level, where the users handled in B2B is completely different than the way the users are handled in the B2C systems. Okay. So this was one part. The second part is again very simple. The checkout strategy itself. So in the B2B, there are some of the facilities and all that should not be there as part of the B2C. Whereas in the B2C, there are some of the features that is there that cannot be there in the B2B. These are the two areas that it differs from one to another. And this is where the B2B system and the B2C system stands out from one another. That's it. That's the very simple understanding. So we are just going to discuss about the B2B and B2C system in compared to the hybris commerce accelerator. So what is that now? What is the commerce accelerator is all about? Can anyone just put some light on it? Why it's accelerated? Basically, I have told it, I believe.
Deepak, so accelerators, this hybris is all about accelerators. So accelerator, we can say that it is a semi-completed web application. So this is the concept which we use in this hybris, so all the accelerators, what they will do is it will handle all the functionality and like in generating templates and all the processes.
Okay, let's not go into that detail itself, Khaja. So let me just tell you one small thing. Means I ask you one small thing. You have told me that accelerator is a semi-complete code base. What is that?
It is like suppose we want to create any like a framework, so then we have to do from scratch all the coding. So what accelerator do is it will create all the necessary things as a predefined. It will give all the functionality predefinedly, and we will implement those. We will use those functionalities, and we will implement. We use those functionalities as per our requirement.
So that's what you mean by semi-complete?
Yes.
So if I say you one small thing is like the accelerator code base, whatever is we are having, with a very little bit of modification, we can directly host them onto the production system itself. Then what you will say, is it a semi-complete or a complete code base? So basically, let me tell you over here is like the accelerator code base or the commerce accelerator is nothing but the code base that is provided, which we use to implement the B2B or B2C scenarios in hybris commerce. Okay. And why we call it as accelerator? Because we have the completely almost production ready code base provided, and that is a best practice code base provided by hybris just to start our stuff. And that's where it accelerates our learning or accelerates the implementation process itself or the implementation time itself. It accelerates too much. Okay. So by that way, whatever is there, we are just calling it as the hybris commerce accelerator. There is nothing called the semi-ready code base. It's either it's ready or it's not ready. So what actually is having, what actually you wanted to tell us, it's very simple that it is having some of the standard features that is provided by the hybris commerce. And if we want to enhance the feature, we can enhance on it. If we want some new features, we can add on to it as well. So this is what the hybris commerce accelerator is all about. So we can just have a look at this right now. So it's the reference implementation of a web framework providing a fully functional storefront. So if you just want to use, let me just tell you here itself, if you want to use your accelerator over here, like if you want to use the accelerator code base and just go for the implementations, all you can do is you can use any versions of hybris. It should not be, we should not stick to 5.4 or something. If you want 5.7 also, that can be done. Okay, just the process is completely same and the features are also same. There are some new features as well, we will discuss in course of time. Okay, so hybris commerce suite, whatever it actually comes up with, it comes up with all the pre-configured foundation code base, which actually means incorporates a good practice multi-channel capability. So these are the stuff I have already told you. And the commerce accelerator is a starting point, as it greatly reduce our implementation time and cost. The foundation code base which is provided by hybris, it's, as I told you, it's almost production ready code base itself. Like some of the security parameters, if we can take care of it, it can be directly deployed onto the production system. It is that much ready code base that they are giving, and we are just starting on top of it. And that's what is the hybris commerce accelerator is all about. So we have seen like the template extension like YMT and all those things, right? So in hybris commerce accelerator also we are having likely a set of extension which basically provides us all the default code base for us. We started our commerce, we started our code with copy itself. We are starting our commerce, or we will be starting our commerce with no code base. Only the accelerator template code base. Even we are going to delete the custom folder that has been created now. We will see that. And how to do that? Anyway, I will tell you. So this is delivered as a complete source code, as I have told you before. And then we have the project development team simply use the accelerator source code, modifies, add or remove the code. That's what is the tweaks or whatever Khaja you just wanted to tell us. That is the one. Okay. The accelerator makes a technical choices for you, such as which framework to use, how to render HTML, how to handle emails, and all those things. So even we are, so I cannot see Zulfi over here, so it would have been a help for him. So basically, if we are using, if the UI persons are using the Bootstrap framework or Less framework itself, those are already there as part of the accelerator. All the standard UI stuff, all the standard, the market available analytics stuff and everything that is provided with the accelerator code base itself. And along with that, if we are just pretty familiar with the accelerator, it is very, very fast. We can just quickly implement whatever the functionality that is being expected as part of it. So we know about the extension, we know about the modules that we are having. Okay. And we know about that extensions are some of the modules that has been created and all those things. The accelerator also is a set of extensions itself. The accelerator modules are a set of 7 extensions, I believe, yes. And all of the extensions are explicitly doing something. Means they are, each one of them are properly relevant in terms of the accelerator itself. So once we will be creating them, and I will be sharing that what all these guys are actually doing in here. I will tell those things as well. Then we have the extension, whatever has been created, that is extensible. Means whenever we require to enhance the extension in compared to data model, in compared to modify the code and everything, it's completely okay to do it. Even whenever we will be setting up the foundation code base for the B2B in our system using Power Tools, or if you just send me some of the images and all, then we will just create a store all by ourselves itself using the accelerator code base during this time itself. Okay. So all the objects engine, object generation, items.xml generation, whatever that is also a part of the system. Starting from the data model, starting from the extension itself, accelerator is a set of it. It's nothing standalone or something, it's just a set of it. And we are using that in the real time. So this is what the commerce platform is out of the box. So this is, if you can remember, if you can remember the demo slide itself, or if you have seen the demo slide itself, so can you guys, any one of you, take the responsibility to just tell me that what this diagram is telling to us? Anyone?
Deepak?
Yeah, go ahead, Khaja.
So you want me to explain like this diagram?
Yeah, on a very high level also it's fine.
Okay, so when coming to hybris, so accelerators will handle all the stuff belongs to hybris. So coming to this, there are some two types like hybris B2B and B2C, and telco and etc. are the different different types of applications we can create by using accelerators with the help of templates already given, already built inside the accelerators. So here there are some cockpits, and we can use those WCMS cockpit for editing purpose, as you told us in previous class. And there is a navigation and search and navigation. So in search and navigation, we can, in hybris, we can say this functionality as solar indexing, and to easily navigate.
Yeah, just Khaja, just let me tell you one thing. Don't go too technical, because there are some people for whom the accelerator is a complete new thing.
Yeah, so we can easily tell that navigation is, we can easily navigate to our product. So promotions, we to add some promotion codes like products. So if you buy any buy two get one free, like that promotions, etc. And cross selling means while the customer is some purchasing any product, so beside it, some other product is coming with some offer. So his mind is, his concentration will get interrupted, and he will buy those two if he is interested. So this is the main thing. Easily we can sell the products, and checkout process, as it is the advanced concept, as we all know. And reviews. So before, this is the main important thing before purchasing any products, in like in Flipkart, if the product is having more reviews, so obviously the customer goes to that product because it is having more reviews, and more customers has rated that because they buy it and they enjoying that. And social networks, so we can just integrate some Facebook and Twitter, some etc. networks to that, and we can connect to that, and we can rate there. And this I am not sure about this fraud engine. And shopping cart, product details. So whenever we purchase any products, we add to that cart for checkout purpose, and to buy that products. And when coming to product details, for example, the product details is having a variant product, and different options, like the product image, product brand, variant color.
Just make it a bit short. Yeah, just make it short, not a problem.
Okay. Then payment, it is comes under some web services part, like gateways. And reporting, there is some report cockpit. So whenever the transaction goes, I mean whenever the customer purchase some product, so there are some reports which is maintained backside in report cockpit. So this is all about some of the stuff belongs to B2C, and there is common to B2B also. And coming to channels, hybris channels, they are order management and store locator. So this is there are some more channels.
Be a bit slow, Khaja. Okay, be a bit slow.
Yeah.
So whatever, yeah, got it. Okay, just let's just get it wrapped up in a very small manner. We have the hybris accelerator. So whatever we have discussed is like we are having a code base along with some of the features, right? So this is what is the accelerator is all about. That's what we have learned so far. And now the hybris accelerator basically gives us an e-commerce storefront based on the template we choose, whether it's a B2B one or a B2C one. Both of them are available, and there are some other accelerators as well apart from B2B and B2C. We will see that as well. So as part of the hybris B2B commerce, here the example is of B2C commerce itself. So we have the WCMS cockpit, which is web content management, basically. Then search and navigation, like searching the products into the website. These are some of the features. Promotions, cross-selling, upselling components, checkout strategies, what I told you, basically, like the differs between the user management and the checkout strategies itself. Then we have the ratings and reviews itself, so we can integrate the buzzer voice or some of the third party itself. Buzzer voice is there. Then we have FIFO integration also can be done. So reviews and ratings is there. Then we have the social media integration, social network like Facebook, Twitter, those things integration. So these are some of the features that we are having. Okay, and it's delivered as close as a working website, as I told you. And then we have the integration standpoints as well. So integration standpoint means if we just want to manage it with some of the web services, if we just want to manage it with some of the other stuff as well, like some of the third-party systems and all the integration standpoints, also it is given. Whenever we will be seeing that it is the SAP hybris integration is considered, it is already given. The APIs and everything is given. We will see that as well. Then along with that, we have the platform functionality. So platform functionality, what is that? Our Impex, cockpits, HMC, flexible search, service layer framework, and all those things. So basically based on the platform functionality itself, based on whatever we have learned so far, we are just going to develop a complete full functional website, and the boxes over here as part of it, it's already given out of the box solution to hybris. It's already given as part of the out of the box itself, and we are just going to use them, and that's what is the accelerator is the one. Okay, so we can just, so we will see that there are so many other things as well. Like the e-commerce technology implementation, the e-commerce storefront, which is we are just going to store basically. So we have the best practice technology implementations as well. So best practice means how to write the code in hybris, how to write the JS codes, and also I was just talking to Divya regarding this in the morning. So the JS modifications and all those things, whatever has been there, there are certain ways of writing it. There are some certain files which we are actually going to work on or actually going to modify if we are just trying to achieve some of the functionality. Those are some of the stuff that already we are having as part of the accelerator code base, and this is where our guidance, hybris is guiding us for the best practice storefront to be there. And let me tell you one more thing as well. The e-commerce storefront, whatever is being provided for electronics and apparel, means like the B2C itself, we get it the responsive storefront on the first go itself. The default storefront is responsive. If you just try to use the mobile simulators and all these things, it is absolutely fine. I will show it to you once we will go for these things. Okay, the default storefront or whatever is there, that is completely responsive in nature. That's absolutely fine. And for Power Tools, means which is a B2B for us, so we will be having them as well. So just on a quicker note, if you just want to access the websites, whoever is new to hybris, I would like to tell here, all you can do is we know that HMC is there, right? So we will be going to the HMC hybris login, and then we will be going to the WCMS. Okay, in that there will be the websites listed out over here. Open any of them, whatever you feel like. Okay, just you are here right now, right? Go to the second tab, that is the WCMS cockpit properties URL. So you just go here and just take the preview URL from here. All you need to do is copy this and then localhost 9001, simply localhost 9001 and paste it. Give enter, the site will render for your system. You will be able to see the website. Just go through the B2B site or B2C site, whatever you feel like. you can go through it and you will be able to figure out. So then whenever we will be starting, or we will be I will be telling the features of B2B and B2C, you will be start relating to each other. So that's why before coming to tomorrow's session, if you get some time today, just quickly go through the site itself, if possible, at least once on a quick round check, just kind of a smoke testing kind of a scenario. If you just go through it, then the feature level, it will be very helpful for us to just work on that. So basically, I would not like to go more about it as of today. So what is the plan is like, tomorrow onwards, we will be starting, or we will be jumping onto the commerce, and we will be going for the feature level itself. But if you have any doubts or anything on the core part, any practice kind of a scenario that you were stuck with, we can take a call for 5 minutes before every day while we are starting the session, like we do it for present time itself, the doubt clearing part. We will take that call and then we will clear it off, and then we will jump into the commerce. Because commerce, in the feature level, there is a long way to cover and long things to cover as well for us. Okay, so we will be going for the search and navigation, web content management. Then there are some of the product classifications and all those things are there. Then we have a code execution, means like the project execution scenario as well. Like we will be creating our code base based on B2B, whatever we have just now discussed. Then we will be seeing an overview of the SAP hybris implementation. There are the best practices and all those things as well. So there is a lot of areas to cover basically for this commerce itself. So just quickly go through the sites itself once, and then we will just start the discussion regarding commerce from tomorrow onwards. So that's it, guys. That's it for today for me. So if you have any questions, or if you just want to share anything, you can just quickly go ahead. Okay. If we are good, then we can close the call. Yeah, Jaideep, go ahead.
I was just saying, that last time you had mentioned you were going to send one of those presentations, right?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I will just do it right away today itself after the call. I think I have forgot that. Yeah?
No problem. Okay.
Right away, yeah.
Thank you. No.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak. Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.